ride quality is also very refined and smooth. Soaks up just about every bump. Not noisy at all either whatsoever. Even on these KO2s, you get a toot too. This thing turns a lot of heads. Very cool car. All right, we got our coffee. Get back on the road here. Absolutely love this thing. Yeah, these Safari windows are absolutely awesome. Alrighty, let's get rolling now. Can't get over how cool this console is. What is going on, you guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a review and drive in the Ineos Grenadier long wheelbase station wagon Trialmaster. I want to give a huge shout out to Sierra Ineos of Orange County for lending me this car to shoot today, so go check them out if you are in the area of Irvine looking for a new Ineos vehicle. I'll link their website in the description down below, so if you're in the area, I suggest you go check them out and test drive one of these for yourself because it is an amazing vehicle, as you will see in this video. Now let's jump right into it, but before we go for a drive, let's take a look at a few things. The Grenadier is powered by a 3-liter twin-turbo BMW B58 inline-six, married to a ZF 8-speed automatic transmission that allows for a manual override, paired with a Tremec 2-speed transfer case, offering both high and low gear ratios for enhanced off-road control, and a locking center differential as standard with the option to spec the vehicle with front and rear diff locks as this one is today. Now, the Grenadier's B58, tuned specifically for this car, produces 282 horsepower and 332 pound-feet of torque, pushing that power to all four wheels with the rig's permanent four-wheel drive, has an electronically limited top speed of 99 miles an hour, and will get you from 0 to 60 in 7.3 seconds with a 7,000 RPM Redline. Now, obviously, being a purpose-built off-road utility vehicle, the Grenadier's focus is not on speed and outright performance and is no light SUV. So talking weight numbers, the Grenadier's got a curb weight of roughly 6,000 pounds, a gross vehicle weight of 7,716 pounds, payload capacity of 1,684 pounds, towing capacity of roughly 7,700 pounds, dynamic roof load of 330 pounds, and a static roof load of 928 pounds. Now, the spec we're in today is finished in a paint called Inky Black, and it is a Trialmaster, so that comes with a few upgrades from the factory. Again, Trialmaster, not a Trailmaster, which I've heard a lot of people say, but we'll get into some of those things later in the video. But off the bat, you got stuff like the winch on the front here, the trailer hitch on the back, we got the high air intake on the side there. It's on these 17-inch alloy wheels wrapped in BF Goodrich KO2s, great tire, and then some other stuff like the leather interior of the car, so a few upgraded items. Now, the Grenadier's true old school layout includes body on frame construction, recirculating ball steering, solid front and rear axles, and again, the 3 possible locking diffs depending on your spec options, and a 2-speed transfer case with manual engagement. Now, diving into the off-road capabilities of this rig, which it is extremely capable, you're working with a galvanized steel body, a full box section ladder frame from Gestamp, which is fully E-coated for maximum corrosion protection, and it can actually be optioned in red also, which is pretty cool if you want it to be coated in that color. And the steel section is up to 3.5 millimeters thick in key places. You got your permanent four-wheel drive, heavy-duty Carrero beam axles in the front and rear, and again, the differential locks to keep you moving evenly if you've only got one wheel that can develop traction, as well as the off-road and waiting modes that can be activated too. Now, the Grenadier's got a generous approach angle of 35.5 degrees, a breakover angle of 28.2 degrees, and a departure angle of 36.1 degrees that ensures you can handle steep inclines, descents, and uneven terrain without scraping the underbody of the rig, in addition to the 10.5 inches of ground clearance and 115-inch wheelbase. As for suspension, the Grenadier utilizes double wishbones in the front and a solid rear axle with a panhard rod for stability, with the combination providing a balance for off-road terrain and on-road stability. And again, got that multi-link suspension setup with the separate progressive rate coil springs from Eibach, and dampers giving you maximum traction and articulation. For brakes, you're working with Brembos. You've got 316 millimeter vented front discs and 305 millimeter solid rear discs. And also, as we stated before, you're sitting on those 17-inch alloy wheels wrapped in the BF Goodrich KO2 tire. Now we gone ahead and popped the hood to touch on that powerhouse again. The 3-liter twin-turbo BMW B58 inline-six, specifically tuned for use in the Grenadier. It's a very versatile and reliable engine, putting out 282 horsepower in this case. While it's not a huge number, it does provide enough muscle to get you going when you need to accelerate out of a tight spot or up a steep incline maybe. And that 332 pound-feet of torque gives you all the pulling power that you can need for a heavy load to haul or off-roading where you might be carrying some heavy equipment or a trailer. And that low end torque's crucial for low speed technical driving, allows you to precisely maneuver over some rocks, logs, harsh terrain, you name it, without the need to build up too much excessive momentum. And yeah, overall the B58 is just a really solid, overbuilt, strong engine. And that twin turbocharger setup is also going to help the engine deliver strong and responsive power throughout the rev range, which can really be beneficial at higher altitudes, where naturally aspirated engines could lose power because of the thinner air. But with the turbos, obviously, you're forcing more air into the engine, so the Grenadier is going to be able to maintain its power even in some more challenging high altitude environments where you might be pushing this vehicle the way it's meant to be driven. Just to reiterate also, that B58 is married to a ZF 8-speed automatic transmission, recalibrated and fitted with a heavy-duty torque converter, and you've also got some manual control options if you prefer more driver engagement, especially if you're tackling some challenging terrain. So you can select specific gears to maintain that engine braking if you're descending a steep slope or navigating some technical sections. And it's a great fit for this rig since it's a widely used transmission, known for the reliability and durability of it, and it can handle the extra off-road stress that's going to be thrown at it when you're driving this car the way it was built to be driven. And while we're talking about intention, it's probably a good time to touch on how this vehicle even came to be. So you may or may not be familiar with Ineos. It's a multi-billion-dollar British chemical company with a lot of sports and automotive interests, and among those being they are the third shareholder of the Mercedes-AMG Petronas Formula One team. So you've probably seen their logo, even if you aren't familiar with the brand. But anyways, their founder and chairman, Jim Ratcliffe, came up with the idea for this vehicle over a conversation at the Grenadier pub in London, hence the name of the car. And he was inspired by the original Land Rover Defender and disappointed by the new Defender. Have to say, I was too. Therefore, he came up with the Grenadier due to the gap in the market for a new, uncompromising off-roader with a nod to the past and that little vintage twist to it. So yeah, that's the story on how the Ineos Grenadier came to be. And I believe he also owns the Grenadier pub now too, which is pretty cool. So yeah, if you want something done right, do it yourself. And I do believe back in 2016, he also tried to buy the old Defender production plant from Land Rover, but he was refused. On that topic too, this is obviously Ineos, a British company, but you've got a German power plant in the car, and they are built in Hambach, France, actually in the old smart car factory which Ineos acquired to build the Grenadier in. And obviously there are a lot of design cues nodding to the old Defender, which the inspiration was drawn from. I mean, just the front of it, very, very similar in nature to the old Defender, but pretty cool that this is a new production vehicle. And again, this being the Trialmaster, we've got that winch on the front, the raised air intake on the side. I mean, this rig is just built to be used and abused. You could stand on these as well. Yeah, nothing on here just for show. Everything's functional and is meant to be driven and pushed off-road. Moving over to the side too, you probably saw this, which you can actually attach gear to the side with the correct mount points for it. As you see, that runs all the way along the back there, and it does on the other side of the car as well. But yeah, tons of place to attach gear, so everything's functional on the car. And then up top here, we got some more mounting points for racks and stuff. This one has a Rhino rack on it right now. And another really cool feature is this is access for power. So you could plug stuff in there, whatever it might be, if you're gonna be camping out of the car or you name it, it's power access there to plug your things in. And on the right hand side, we have the fuel door here as well. I believe it's so big, honestly, because they're offered in diesel too, to my knowledge. Not gonna be the case in the US market, at least not right now. You just have the gasoline engine with that V58. But yeah, you got your fuel door on that side. Continuing to the back too, one of my personal favorite parts of the vehicle, we've got this awesome split rear door. No tailgate, obviously, just like the G-Wagon or Defender, because we have the spare on the back, so it'd be too heavy. But something I love is how it is split here. So you just open this side down here as well. Tons of room in the back, but I do love how it's split there. If you might be parked in a tighter spot and you don't have as much room, you could just open that side there and still access everything back here, as long as it's not something bigger you're pulling out, but you still have access to everything in the rear. And your only real downside to that is that with the split middle here, you do have a decently sized blind spot in the back, but it's manageable as long as you're paying attention. Opening that back up again, as you can see here, we got more attachment points for whatever gear you might want to attach there, as well as this to secure cargo down there. As you can see though, tons of cargo room in the rear, super wide. Even with the seats up, you've got 44.3 cubic feet of space, but these seats do fold down as well if you need even more space. Go ahead and shut that again. And then lastly, on the rear here, we've got this awesome ladder here for more roof access. Climb on up. As you can see, you got rail attachment points, and again, this one has the Rhino rack on it already, but yeah, pretty cool. And to reiterate, also, you've got that tow hitch and about 7,700 pounds of towing capacity. And one more thing to note, you've got those factory skid plates on the rear and in the front here, just in case you come into contact with some rocks while you're off-roading. So that just about covers the exterior and a lot of the technical aspects of the Grenadier. And these have a starting MSRP of just over $75,000 USD, but can be spec'd way up. The one we're in today has a sticker of just under $92,000. This is a Trialmaster, so again, it does come with a lot of these other accessories and upgrades from the factory. But yeah, you got a base MSRP of $75,000, and then you could spec it up from there. But it is cool because this really is a blank canvas that you could tailor to fit your exact needs. We'll go ahead, hop inside now. Something very fitting for this car is the super analog key. You have a traditional key here. Obviously your lock, unlock, this is the alarm, the Ineos logo in the middle. But yeah, it's a true key. Not many cars now have that. Go ahead and open that up. And first thing you'll probably notice is these awesome 8-way manual adjustable Recaro seats. These ones finished in leather, as this is the Trialmaster, which again does come with some of those upgraded options, such as the leather seats. And with the time that I've spent in this car, these seats are super comfortable. The bolsters hold you in place very nicely. It's got a nice upright position, gives you a good command of the road. But yeah, overall, absolutely love these seats. Go ahead, jump on in, and then close that door. Gonna go ahead and start her up as well. Super hot today, so need that AC cranked. So off the bat, we'll start on the left here. You've got your basic things like any other car. We have our window controls down below here, door handle, obviously, our door locks, and then the mirror adjustment right up there. And down below, you have your manual adjustments for those Recaro seats. Over here, we have AC vent, as well as the metal, and obviously on the passenger side as well. Moving over to the steering wheel, super unique steering wheel, feels really good in the hands, especially fits this vehicle, being that it's a off-road specialty vehicle. But on the left-hand side here, we have our voice controls, phone controls, our cruise control settings. In the middle, obviously, our horn, louder one, and then something really cool here that they have is this little toot horn. More of a friendly horn if you don't want to give the middle finger with the main horn. If you're just trying to alert a pedestrian or someone, or cyclist, as we have on there, of your presence, or say what's up maybe to another Grenadier driver. You got that little toot horn on there. And then as well on the side here, we have our backwards and forward skip buttons for media, as well as the volume control, and then the OK button. And behind the wheel on the stalks here, pretty self-explanatory. These are BMW items as well. On the left-hand side, we've got our lighting controls and then the turn signals, obviously. And the right-hand side, we have our wiper controls. Now, as you've probably also noticed, something unique to the Grenadier is you don't have a traditional gauge cluster. You have your speed and information on the right-hand side of the infotainment screen. You're right here. On the cluster, I guess you could call it, in front of you is just going to be warning lights, basically. So like this right now, I don't have my seatbelt on, the car's in park, so warning lights will pop up there, or if you've got your signals on, but there's no screen or anything on there, which I don't mind. I think it's cool. The only thing that would have been nice, in my opinion, is just a simple speedometer on there, so you've got your speed or maybe gear on there as well, but it works. You got the screen on the right displaying that. But yeah, only thing I think I would like on there, since it doesn't have holographic or anything, would be your speed. Continuing to the right now, we've got that 12.3-inch central infotainment screen, and again, that's going to handle the instrumentation and infotainment functions of the car. You've got your speed, your fuel level, the gear, engine temp, revs, all displayed in this little area on the left-hand side of the center stack there. And you got the main section of the screen, and you can reconfigure it if you want to give more off-road driving data or whatever, and it controls your infotainment functions. And you do have support for CarPlay, which is wired and wireless, and then Android Auto, but only wired, I believe in that. But yeah, as you can see on the screen here, different options. It's got a little bit of lag to it, but it's fitting for its British roots, just like Land Rovers are. But yeah, so different off-road controls, temps of your tires and everything like that. Super cool. It's a nice clean setup. I like that it doesn't really distract you from the other elements of the car, the road or anything. Kind of a nice, I guess you could call it, bland monochrome look, but I'd prefer that, and it fits this car, being that it's very, very analog and kind of a nod to the past. I think it's cool. Now, one of my absolute favorite things about this car is just the aesthetic and configuration of the console. Not to spoil it, but also overhead here. We'll get to that in a minute. But it looks like it's something out of an aircraft. I mean, I'll link here in the video. I do a little bit of flying in a previous video I did, Day in the Life with the 992 C4S Porsche, where we're in the Cessna 172. This entirely reminds me of being in an aircraft. It's awesome. It's just all big analog gauges, really nice build quality. You can tell this stuff's meant to last, and you can like, if you're in a cold environment or something, you could definitely operate all this stuff with gloves on if you were wearing that. But yeah, just a super unique design. Definitely seems like a little nod to aviation as well, and just overall one of my favorite things about the Grenadier. But getting to it, you've pretty self-explanatory, very obvious. You've got your seat heating for respective sides for driver and passenger there. This is your AC fan, temp for the AC, and then zone where you want it to blow out of. And then moving down a little bit, you got your front and rear window defrosters, auto start-stop, which always leave that off because that's annoying. Your audio volume and mute button, hazards, your AC on for the climate control, as well as the recirculation, and then your parking assistance sensor up here, which is pretty cool, an option as well. You've got this functioning compass as well as an altimeter, and it has your heading on there as well, which is pretty reminiscent of an aircraft too. And then moving down, this will look familiar if you're into BMWs. That gear selector, again, because this is the ZF transmission, just easier for it to work that way. Takes away a little bit from the rest of the vintage kind of looking aesthetic of the car, but it makes sense, obviously, given the transmission in this thing. And then on the left here, we have this wonderful old school parking brake, which I love. I hate electronic parking brakes. Moving on, we do have that four-wheel high and low knob, as the locking center diff is standard in all the Grenadiers, although this one, being a Trialmaster, does have the front and rear diff lock as well. But this is going to be for your high and low four-wheel drive. And then moving down a little further beyond that, we have just a couple more buttons for your infotainment if you don't want to use the touchscreen. And one thing too I know is a big annoyance for a lot of owners of the Grenadier, which the dealer already pre-programmed on here to turn off, and as I assumed, then he confirmed it's going to be fixed in the software update. But the only thing that people are annoyed of is the speed warning yells at you nonstop if you go even 1 mile an hour over the speed limit. But this one's set to it already, so all you do is hit that favorite button there, and it's going to pull up, it'll pull up this overspeed warning, and you just turn that off. And as of right now, you have to do that every time you turn the ignition on, but that's going to be fixed in a software update, so it stays off. Moving down a little more, you got 2 nice deep cup holders here, and then this center storage for the console here. Good amount of room in there. And the cool thing too is that it locks, so maybe if you have some important documents or firearm or something that you want to store in here safely and don't have to worry about if a window gets broken into or something, that's super nice too, that you do have that locking center console. And then before we move overhead, you have this nice little handle here as well as up there for the passenger if you're on some rough terrain, and then the glove box right here. Not super big, but fit your documents. Here's the books for the car, and then this is the remote control for the winch on the front, which is very nice. Moving overhead now, one of my favorite parts of this vehicle is this whole control panel, which is very, very reminiscent of an aircraft. These are some auxiliary power options you can turn on, as well as the internal connections and external if you have things hooked up there. And then got this nice little Grenadier logo on there. And then moving down again, we've got our differential locks, as this is a Trialmaster, so this is optioned with the front and rear diff locks, as well as the standard central differential lock. And then on the right here, there's no dynamic drive modes in this car, but you have the 2 options of off-road and waiting. So if you're on some terrain or in water, like this obviously engages some of the systems of the car and turns off others, for example like the parking sensor if you don't want to go in haywire. And then another really cool feature too is how you've got that little Grenadier icon on here, and it has the dimensions of the car too, so in case you are in a situation where you're not sure how much room you might have, you can maybe reference that. And moving down just a little bit more, we have some of the assistance buttons like the stability control, the downhill assist, and then another really cool one that you don't see too much in cars in the US are the, well, this one's for an exterior light bar if you have one on there, but this one levels the headlights. So if you're going up or down a hill, you can level the headlights to turn up or down, so they're even where you want them to be, and it's illuminating what you want to be illuminated. And then the obvious things here too, these little interior lights right there, and then the automatic door X. I love that my Porsche Cayenne has that too. I love keeping that off because I hate nothing more than at night when you're like getting in and out of the car and it's just a lit up fishbowl. But yeah, so that covers your overhead. And then another awesome thing here are these Safari windows, pop like that. And then another thing that's really cool is you can actually remove them completely if you pop that out and then push that and stow those in the back or something. But these Safari windows come all the way out, which is pretty cool if you want that full kind of overhead open air experience. But yeah, overall, I think the kind of vintage nod design elements of this car are just awesome, as this is a purpose-built, rugged off-road vehicle. You know, it's not a luxury vehicle like some people want to compare it to with like the G-Wagon or Defender, which sure, like they are kind of in the same bracket, but this is honestly a different market. You're going to be buying this car if you're a true overland or off-road enthusiast that wants a rugged vehicle that you could drive the wheels off of off-road and beat on, and it will be able to handle it. Pretty much covers everything up front here, and then also we have our USB charge ports in there. And then something else that's really nice is this little, it's not a charging pad, but it's a nice little spot to put your phone where it doesn't slide around too much. But yeah, that pretty much covers everything for the front, so we will go ahead and check out the back real quick. Before we jump in, something else cool to note, the mats aren't in right now as this is brand new, but there are drain plugs in here for you to wash out the car if you need to. You can pop this liner, and then underneath there's drain plugs, so you could wash it out and it'll just drain out. Another nice feature with off-roading in mind. Jumping in the back here, decent amount of room. Not the most, but it's just as good as a G-Wagon or anything. I mean, as long as the person in front of you has their seat scooted up a little bit, if you're taller, it's certainly manageable. I mean, nothing to complain about, that's for sure. But here's a better look at the front from back here. It's just such an awesome design. That overhead panel is just way too cool. Only thing missing in the back that I would like would be cool if they had like a little net here for you to stow some stuff, but you do have those side pockets, little door cards there. And then obviously we got our nice big AC vents, and then down here, which is super nice, you've got your USB A and C ports, as well as a normal AC outlet that you would find in the house. So plenty of charging options back here and some nice full-size AC vents. But yeah, back seat is nice as well in this. All right, now that we've taken a look at a few things both inside and out, let's do the fun part and let's take it for a drive. Again, absolutely love that parking brake. So the steering, everyone wants to know about the steering in this car. It is recirculating ball steering, which is, you know, it's heavier, less responsive than rack and pinion, but there's a reason for it, and it's also not that bad. People just like to complain a lot. This is a purpose-built off-road vehicle, so there's a reason that it has that recirculating ball steering, because if you hit a boulder or something off-road, you don't want the wheel to snap the way it would in a traditional rack and pinion steering. So that's why there is this steering setup in this car. And yeah, you do have to unwind the wheel itself. It's not self-centering, but it's not that big of a deal. And that's kind of one of the cool things about this car, is that it's like a modern vintage car, and it's purpose built as a specialty off-road vehicle. So well, yeah, it's not as comfortable or light as, say, a Defender or a G-Wagon is today. Those cars are also much softer, whereas this is a rugged off-road vehicle, and it gets a lot of looks, as you can see. I've already been asked 3 times today what this thing is. A lot of people think it's an old Defender, but that's another really cool element of this car. But yeah, the steering is certainly nothing to complain about. You just have to understand why it has it in this car, because it has a very good reason, and that's why you're going to be buying this car, most likely, is if you're looking for a true off-road vehicle. Within 5 minutes, you're fully adjusted to it. It's, yeah. As you can see here, though, instead of self-centering, you have to unwind the wheel yourself, like so. But yeah. And you do have to make minute adjustments while driving. I'm also kind of used to it. It reminds me a lot of the Mercedes 4x4 squared G550 G-Wagons. Same deal, to where that's recirculating ball steering. So it is more vague, it's heavier, and there's kind of a lot of adjustments to keep straight. But again, these are purpose-built off-road vehicles. It's not a Range Rover. So the plushness isn't the first thing in mind, which a lot of people just assume nowadays with newer cars, but you got to understand the reasoning behind it and the dynamics behind it. It's kind of the same people that complain, for example, like I know a guy that bought a GT3 RS and was complaining that the car was too uncomfortable to drive around town. Well, then buy a Turbo S, okay? The GT3 RS is engineered as a track weapon, which it is, so you have to understand that when you buy that it's not the car that's messed up, it's that you have to know what you're getting into. If you want something more comfortable, get a Turbo S. If you want something more comfortable, go buy a Range Rover, don't buy the Grenadier. But this is a true off-road vehicle. And at some point I would love to take one of these, maybe a press car. Obviously this is a on-the-lot brand new dealer car, so it's not going to be this one, but it would be cool to take a press car off-road to get a feel for what this car is truly capable of and what it was built for. And for some people it might be more uncomfortable coming from something else, but for the amount of time I spend in G-Wagons and how much I love G-Wagons, this is reminiscent of that in a way. It does definitely feel similar behind the wheel of it. and I prefer it. But that's one of the things too, especially the older generation wagons, not as much in the new ones, but they are a little bit archaic, but that's kind of what draws certain people to them and what makes them such a great off-road vehicle. I love this too, how high up this is. Kind of serves as a little armrest. Super nice. But yeah, for me, I personally don't have any complaints with the steering. You just have to get used to it, and after 5 minutes, you're used to it in this car. And that's one of the unique things about this. But it's certainly, I wouldn't say it's a con, which some people are complaining about. I think it's just one of the, you know, unique defining features of the Grenadier, like other off-road vehicles or like some vintage vehicles. It's just, that's how they are. My only complaint about the steering is that I believe it's 3.85 turns full lock, and it has a huge turning radius, so it's not the best in tight spaces maneuvering in that sense, but other than that, it's just something to get used to. And if you already are used to it like me, I mean, it doesn't faze you whatsoever. But it certainly is different than, say, being behind the wheel of a Cayenne or a new Range Rover, or even the newer generation of G-Wagons, since the dynamics on those feel so much different than the older wagons. Ride quality is also very refined and smooth. Soaks up just about every bump. Not noisy at all either whatsoever. Even on these KO2s, I mean, you got a little bit of wind noise, obviously, the same way you do in a G-Wagon, just given the design of the car. I mean, it's technically a cube. But yeah, not much outside noise whatsoever, and the ride quality is very nice on the suspension setup it's on. So really impressed, honestly, with the on-road dynamics, given that this car is engineered fully for off-road, essentially, which is cool also that there's not many vehicles to where they're that capable off-road where you don't have to make much compromise for everyday driving. I would honestly almost compare this car more to, say, a Bronco or a Wrangler than I would to one of the new Defenders or the G-Wagons, because the new G-Class and Defenders are full-blown luxury vehicles. Yes, they're capable off-road, but they're luxury vehicles, and you never see anyone off-roading them. It's a cool GX. You never see anyone off-roading them as you do people with Jeeps and with Broncos, which this is. Let's go. Let me do a little toot horn. There we go. Which is cool about this, because I think the market for this car and the people that are going to be buying this car are true off-road and overland enthusiasts that are going to be actually driving their car. Because realistically, when was the last time you saw someone off-roading their G-Wagon or even a new Defender? As capable as the cars are, people just don't do it. I think, honestly, price point's also a big thing too when you're looking at, I mean, obviously it varies, but we'll just say, like, on average, probably around $150 for a new wagon. You don't see many people off-roading those, where this is kind of an in-between. Again, this one has a pricier spec at just under $92,000 versus the base, which is just under $75,000. So it's kind of in between, say, a Wrangler or a Bronco and like a G-Wagon, to where you're sitting between that price point, where it's definitely not as expensive as a G-Wagon, but it's a little more than a Wrangler. Super unique. I mean, it has so much more character than a Bronco or a Jeep would. I mean, you see Broncos and Jeeps everywhere. I've seen probably, well, there's definitely more in Orange County, I will say, but maybe 10 Grenadiers total I've seen on the road. So they're very few and far between, at least right now. But again, not having to make a compromise for a comfortable car that you can daily while still being in a purpose-built off-road machine is pretty cool. And I think the Grenadier definitely nailed that. Overall, though, it's a super refined, absorbent ride. Not really any vibrations. And I mean, we're sitting in traffic right now, but it's nice and torquey too. The smooth power delivery, again with that B58 and then the ZF transmission. Just overall, a very smooth car. Although I do find it kind of funny that I mean, it makes sense. It's a good engine and transmission setup, but given that Ineos is a huge sponsor of Mercedes Formula One team, it's kind of funny that they're using BMW components. But they do work well. The transmission and engine are both very versatile and very reliable, which is also funny given it's BMW. You wouldn't usually assume reliability to be synonymous with BMW, but the B58 is a great engine. Yeah, the one thing I wouldn't mind would be the speed somewhere up on the dash or the cluster, I guess if you can call it a cluster. I've never been a fan of speed on infotainment screens like the Tesla has. Doesn't help that it's a gusty day too. Normally not too windy around here. I don't know if it's picking it up in the camera, but you could kind of see that blind spot with the split doors there. It's not too bad. It's definitely manageable. You got a little bit of an obstruction with the spare wheel and that, but it can, for the most part, see just fine out of it. And I absolutely love these windows. They're so cool. Safari windows. And again, they fully pop out if you want them to pop out all the way. Impressed with how smooth this car is all around. Yeah, you see that torque? This thing moves when you want it to move. No doubt about that. There we got a new Defender 90 up there. They're cool. I've driven quite a few of them. I wasn't really impressed though. I mean, it's plush, it's soft, like it's definitely a luxury vehicle, but same reason that Jim Ratcliffe literally created this is that it's hard to call it a Defender because of how plush it is. Just nothing about it is reminiscent of the old Defender or like a rugged off-road vehicle. I also think the interior is wildly underwhelming in that car. It's still capable off-road, but nice. You get a toot too. I love this. I would abuse that non-stop if I own one of these. And then we got a G63 up there. This thing turns a lot of heads. Very cool car. All right, we got our coffee. Get back on the road here. Absolutely love this thing. Love deep cup holders too like that, so your drink doesn't go flying. Nothing more annoying than that. Yeah, these Safari windows are absolutely awesome. Just for the sake of the video though, I'll go ahead and close them. So I know that wind noise is probably a little bit annoying. Alrighty, let's get rolling now. Yeah, anyone complaining about the weight and behavior of the steering wheel should maybe just go to the gym. Probably solve their problems. Can't get over how cool this console is. Love that little functioning compass too, is pretty cool. Got your altimeter and heading. That speed warning came back on. All you gotta do is hit that favorite and then, yeah, turn that off. And again, that's gonna be done or fixed in a software update. Not too big of a deal. Hey, it's much better than the new Mercedes, well, pretty much every new car, but one thing I hate about the new G63s or new wagons in general, all Mercedes, is that lane assist that like overrides. If you're taking kind of the natural line of a road and you so happen to like cross over a white line in doing so, it shoves the car, like it overrides the steering and throws the car back in the lane, which is unbelievably annoying. This has I think a lane departure warning, like it'll tell you, but it doesn't override the steering in any way. The only safety system in here, I believe, where there's any kind of override is the emergency braking, to where if you're about to hit something, it'll automatically engage the brakes. But apart from that, I believe it's just the drowsiness detection, the speed warning, and then the lane departure warning. But those are just kind of like haptic alerts, and they don't physically take over any controls of the car besides the emergency braking. This B58 really does feel like the perfect engine for this car. Now, I would love to know, just hypothetically, how this thing would be with a V8, and it would be pretty sick in a manual transmission, but wouldn't be very practical. Would be sick though. And I believe your fuel economy in this, you're going to be getting 15 city, 15 highway. So, I mean, not fantastic, but again, given that this is a very heavy off-road vehicle, it's what you would expect. So it's not like it's stand out in a negative manner either. There we go, we got a new G550. I mean, are these two comparable? Absolutely, but I feel like they're two very different markets. The wagons, I certainly wouldn't say devolved, but I feel like the wagons kind of shift into more of like a luxury clout item than anyone actually using one for off-roading as you would with this car. But if you off-road your G-Wagon legitimately, respect. You should be. But around here, no one's doing that. Yeah, some of the mods already available for the Grenadier are awesome. I'll drop a link below to Overland Garage 4x4. They're actually just on the other side of the freeway from Sierra Ineos over here in Irvine, but they do a lot of mods for the Grenadiers, which look awesome. I'll also include in here some clips from the dealership earlier of one of their vehicles they brought by, but it totally changes the game in my opinion. And I certainly would not rule one of these out, as I am kind of looking for a new daily. I wouldn't go probably with this spec just based on how much it is, but I think it's definitely worthwhile to kind of get the blank canvas. It's 75 all day. I think it's fully worth it, and then take it to Overland Garage 4x4 and have them do kind of a sick build on it. I think that is definitely the move with one of these. But I will link them below as well for you to check out. I know my audience is probably usually more into the exotic supercar side of things, but I enjoy everything. I love all cars. But as a sports car and supercar guy myself, it is nice to sometimes be behind the wheel of something that's capable off-road, just has the personality that this car has. It's not much on the road today that's unique in this sense, and also refreshing, just the analog drive of this car. Just step on it. See, it moves when you want it to move too. These California drivers. But yeah, that little 3-liter B58 has enough torque to get you moving. I wouldn't say it's a fast car, but it's not meant to be a performance vehicle. It's a off-road machine. But it is certainly fast enough. Yeah, personally, I think I would probably spec one with the paint option that is called Magic Mushroom, I believe. Really cool, kind of putty, tan-ish putty kind of gray color. That, and then throw it on some like beadlock methods or something with a little bit of a lift and bigger tire. Be awesome. And as I said before, for this being a true off-road specialty vehicle, you're not compromising any amount of comfortability. And I actually prefer the minimal amount of screens and BS in a car. I love like tactile analog buttons, obviously, like this setup. That's why I'm always in the 997 too, because it's just such a refreshing balance of vintage and modern. But I think this is perfect in terms of the amount of tech in it. I mean, I could even do without the screen personally, but that's the thing too, is when you need it because of all the new features in cars, to where if you were to just have buttons, it literally would start looking like a 747 with the amount of analog buttons you would have to have. So you do need a screen, but it is cool. I think it would be cool too if it were possible almost, I know in the Rolls Royces you can hit a button and it'll flip down like a wood panel over the screen with a clock on it in some of the cars. But something like that would be pretty neat, to where if this could kind of stow away if you don't want any screen at all on there, it'd be a nice little touch. But overall, I'm really impressed with this car. It drives far better than I anticipated it to on the road. Just from some of the things I've heard, I think it's people being dramatic and also kind of missing the mark on what this car is and why it exists. Like, it's not supposed to be a Range Rover in terms of like luxury and comfort, but it's again, it's luxury enough, at least in my opinion. I mean, you got, especially with this one with all the leather and everything, but that's not even what it was built for. It was built to be a true off-road rig, which it is, and it does that very well, but it's also comfortable enough to daily. I mean, for me, as long as I've got AC and music, I'm good. And I would definitely urge you to go out. If you're local, definitely go to Sierra Ineos, but if you're not local to Southern California, then I guess find a dealer near you, an Ineos dealer, and go test drive one. I'm sure they'd love to have you test drive one, because at the end of the day, they want to sell cars, and develop your own opinion on it. But I think it's phenomenal. I think they did a fantastic job. And again, I'd love to, at some point, be able to get access to drive one of these the way it was intended to be driven, off-road, because I know how capable it is. It'd be cool to do kind of like a ski trip in the snow, or like an off-road trip in one of these would be an absolute blast, and get some content. Yeah, as for me though, if I were to buy one of these, I would for sure get the base spec of it, just to keep the price down, and also due to the fact that these are meant to beat the crap out of and actually off-road it. So I'd rather have the least amount of nice items on it, I guess, if that makes sense. Probably just a suspension and wheels fed up, and then not have to worry about anything, and just thrash it off-road would be a blast. Yeah, it's funny, I did have a guy come up to me earlier thinking that this was like a Defender resto mod, which it does kind of look like. Something else that's neat, if you could see it here, this auxiliary power button, if you turn that on, when you're in the car with it off, you don't have to have the key in the ignition. That'll give you power to the systems of the car, which is nice too, but you just got to remember to turn that off so you don't kill the battery when you get out. Yeah, it's a robust little engine. For not making the most horsepower, it's still moved. This is the same engine, obviously like different mapping and tune, but this is like the same engine that's in the new Toyota Supra and in a bunch of BMWs. But yeah, the B58's a great, reliable engine. That's an interesting place to run. A median? It's literally got a running path right here. Yeah, as you could see, there's a little bit of play and finesse, obviously, in the steering. But again, that comes with the recirculating ball steering. And I don't know, call me crazy, but I kind of like it. I think it's cool. It's one of the defining characteristics of like a car like this, or again, not as much the regular G-Wagons, but the 4x4 squared G550s, a ton. Like way worse than this. So if you've driven one of those, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Or maybe like an old pickup truck, but it's definitely exasperated like tenfold in those 4x4 squared. And we're just gonna hop on the 405 for a little bit of freeway driving before we wrap up the video here. Although traffic is ridiculous, so not sure we'll really be at freeway speeds. Luckily, we only got about one exit to go. Wind noise, not bad at all, given the aerodynamics of this car. Obviously, it's gonna be a bit more pronounced, much like a G-Wagon is, just because of the cubish shape of it in nature, but Yeah, nothing that's unbearable by any means. And then also the road noise isn't bad whatsoever on these KO2s. And again, that suspension, really smooth, refined ride. Gotta give that tooth thing another go. Love this little armrest setup too, super comfortable. And then again, that comparison of the actual horn and the little courtesy horn. Depends how bad someone cuts you off on which one to use. See what I mean here? So like kind of taking the natural driving line, you go over that white line. If you had the lane assist on in a new G63, it would have literally thrown you back in the lane. It's the worst thing ever. I like that this car is more analog and not too intrusive. And then we got a new Defender behind us. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to bring us to the end of our video of the review of the Ineos Grenadier Trialmaster. Again, want to give a huge shout out to Sierra Ineos of Orange County for lending me this vehicle to film. Go check them out if you are interested in buying one of these, or even just want to check the vehicle out more, test drive it, get a feel for yourself. I highly suggest that you do so. And again, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell notification for when I upload. And as always, we will see you in the next video.